everybody, thanks for joining me today. My name is Audrey Kyle and I work on the Gobbins Cliffs as a watercolor artist at Gobbins Studio. I hope you get something out of today, and I hope that a bit of art in your life helps to ease the situation that we all find ourselves in at the minute. So I work in a various loose style. I like to do little figures, I like to do floral watercolours, some landscapes, just whatever really the mood takes me or whatever grabs my attention. I also run a little sheep farm. I just have approximately 50 ewes and a bit of a livery yard. But art's my main passion and that's what I love, and I have found that it's been a really good go-to for lockdown. I work from a studio which is based on the farm, which was an old coach house and then an old byre. I converted it last year. So that's where I work and display my pieces. You can see here that it's set up for workshops that I run whenever we're in normal times. I like to do big pieces. This is the coloured houses in Whitehead, which is approximately 7 miles away from me. And the cliffs that you can see in the distance were 250 feet straight down to the sea edge. Portmuck Island is approximately 3 miles away, and that's another thing that I love to paint Portmuck. We have puffins on the cliffs. For anyone that doesn't know the area, it's the only mainland breeding ground in Northern Ireland. So it's quite an interesting place where I live, and I think that's why I love to paint nature, and I also tend to be linked very much with the changing of the seasons. For example, in May I was painting bluebells, I could be painting winds or winter trees and various other images that spark my imagination. So the image we're going to work on today is one of a little cottage which is approximately half a mile away from me. It's always known it's been there, but it sparked my interest last week whenever I was working in the haylage field, which was about half a mile away from it. So this picture was taken from the cab of a tractor, not the best, but I've decided that that's what I'm going to work with today, and we're going to try and get a lovely image painted of this little place. I call it Where the Donkeys Live because I know they do live there. The first thing you're going to do is do a little thumbnail sketch out, or a number of little thumbnail sketches out, and play around with your image and work with what you think looks best. You have artistic license, so you can put things in, leave things out. The little cottage is the main centre of interest, so that's what you want people to look at as soon as they look at your picture. You want it to spark a wee bit of interest in them whenever they look at it, and then to look closer as opposed to just walk past. So I do a grid up with 9 boxes in it, and you have to pick then the sweet spot, which is the certain area on the box on the third line, and that's here you can see in the Portmuck image why I have put the little birds and the end of the island specifically at that one spot. That's the sweet spot, and that's what we're working towards. Okay, so I'm out in the studio now, and my plan is to try and get everything organised, pick my colours, sketch my piece out so that everything is done, all the decisions are made, and once I start to work then I can just get into a nice flow and it's not disrupted in any way. So you can see the path is leading the eye up in to the farmyard. You don't want anything to block that. It's quite good to have a lead in for a picture with regards to a composition. A bit of detailing. I can't see that much there with regards to what that is, but I think it's probably a stone wall. I'm not even sure for the final piece if I'll include this little house, because in my eyes, even though it's pretty, it's taking you out of the picture. I may just concentrate on the main farmhouse. You can add detailing that isn't, pardon me, actually in the photograph. So there's no chimneys for some bizarre reason. And I'm going to put a little window in the gable end here as well, just for a bit of interest. And don't forget about your shadows, your darks and your lights. In your initial sketch, you can hint at that, so that you're not forgetting where the main shadows are falling. You can see through the trees there. There's a lot of shadow. I've taken the there's a large tree at the gable end of this house, and I've taken that away. I don't like it. I think it detracts from the painting. So the next job is to pick your palette. What kind of mood are you going to go for? Picking your palette really sets the tone for the whole painting. Is it an evening scene? Is it a morning scene? What mood do you want? What's the weather like? Is it a stormy day? Is it a nighttime scene? Sometimes if I have a painting that doesn't work out, I would make a very indigo sky, put a moon on, gives it a whole completely different slant, and then it works. Okay, so colours. I have just put a selection of colours in here. A lot of artists pick just maybe 3 or 4 colours and then mix, and have a very clear idea in their head before they start what colours they're going to use, and that's an excellent idea. I do that partly, but just the way my brain tends to work, I'm quite sporadic and just go a wee bit subconscious with regards to what I'm throwing on the page. So what I have in my mind's eye when I start out isn't necessarily what I have on the page by the end of the process. So this is a great mixing wheel. I've just started to use it rather than the tin box I have, and I love it. So we've got a selection here. We've got ultramarine, we've got a bright green, we've got a lovely one called Moon Glow, got a cadmium red, we've got a violet, yellows, and I love this. This is a turquoise, not sure what make it is, but anyway. So these are my colours. I'm all set up and I'm going to start to paint. So I'm going to start first of all with the sky. So I know that the light is hitting the middle of the farmyard, and as a result I want to try and keep an area in the middle quite bright, so that I can reflect the sky onto the ground, which is always a good trick to do. So lots of water, and just work your own pace. You can let the paint work its magic here. This is a bit like happy accidents. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. There are various other ways to do skies which are more controlled and organised, and you know exactly what you're going to get. But I like that you don't know what you're going to get. Sometimes it might end up in the bin. Sometimes it works out well, and I think that's the trick with painting, or it's certainly the way I approach it. I don't like to sit for hours and hours working on something. I like to get stuck in and go with your gut, and that way I seem to find it a lot more enjoyable. Smaller brush just to soften the edges here. Smaller brush, you can, as long as your page is still wet and shiny. If your page loses its shine, you can't. It doesn't have the same effect. It makes it look what artists would call muddy. If it goes off the page, don't let it back on. Now this is heavy paper that I'm using, so I haven't had to stick it down onto a board. But if you're using a lighter paper, you would need to stick it onto the board, or it would go wavy. You've got a lovely dog hair in the middle there, thanks to my trusty pal Spencer. I want to put a little bit of red mixed with purple here, just for a wee bit of variation and interest. Don't panic if you make a mistake at this stage. half the fun of it if you paint in this style. It's quite prominent, but the trick is once you dry this off with a hairdryer before you go on to your next layer, it will dry lighter, and as a result you don't need to worry quite so much if something looks dark on the page. Okay, I'm happy with what I have there now, so I'm going to dry it off. Okay, so that's the sky dry. I'm then going to move on to the next layer. This is all your first layer. So similar scenario here. You're working loosely, and it can be light in colour because you're going to strengthen it up, and it's quite nice when you strengthen it up that you've got the layer colour showing through. So we just work along your line, mixing greens and yellows here just to get a bit of a variation in the tone. It's good to have light colours and stronger. You're going to want a bit of variation and difference to make your picture sing. We're keeping this bit light in the middle. You can mix your blues in as well with your yellow, because obviously blue and yellow make green. It's perfectly fine to leave parts of your page white as well. So it's better not to overwork at this stage and just see where the picture goes. I just like to build it up and see what happens. Now you can see what I did at the front there. The closer you get to the front of the page, the stronger colours you can use, because, you know, look out your kitchen window and, you know, the colours closer to you are stronger, whereas the colours further away are obviously lighter. So same principle goes with that when you're painting. And then we'll dry that off. Okay, so that's the first layer down. Next stage, I'm happy with my sky. I don't really want to touch it again. It's simple, and the feel of this picture is that it's just going to be a nice, simple little piece with not too much fuss. So we're going to start to strengthen up the trees here. So you're going to need a slightly darker green. The light's coming from behind, so it's hitting the top of the trees. So. I know that the house is white, so it's good to have a darker colour for the contrast up against the house, which works quite well. Paintbrush is falling apart. Not a good look. And I know that the roof of that house is going to be a Bangor blue type slate affair, so I don't want a dark colour up against that. Keep that quite light there. Okay, of all the colours, I do struggle with greens. I have no idea what it is, but anything is going to go disastrously wrong. For me, you're guaranteed it's green. I don't know why. So, you can see the trick with this is to try and keep light in your picture. And just work it coming forwards. You can be referring back to your photograph. And I think I said earlier in the video, if you have taken a photograph and you've got an iPhone, if you use the mechanism on the phone to add different tones in, gives you a really good perspective with regards to your darks and your lights. Your other option is to squint at it slightly, with your eyes partly closed, and that'll show you where the light and the dark colours are. It's good to have a selection of brush strokes. That is really the trick regarding a nice piece. Some people have very detailed brush strokes, others very loose. This is the size of brush I'm on here now. It's a number 8. We started with probably a bit of 20. And then we reduced down to 12. So you don't need that many brushes. 6, 8 is handy, and then the smaller, the very small one is quite good for the detail. So I need to decide what I'm going to do with my foreground here. I think I'll go for the bigger brush again. I'll go for the number 12. I'm going to put a greeny colour over the top of this with a big sweep. I always like to put a wee bit of floral detail in the front, but at the minute I'm actually quite happy with the marks that have been made, so maybe I don't need the floral detail in. I know that there's a lot of darker colours along here. This is all dark. Finish the field off to the side, but I'm not actually sure that will even be included in the final painting. But we'll do it anyway. You can always crop it off. Sometimes you can have 2 pictures within one. After it's finished, you stick a mount around it, and you realise that it looks better with 2. So that's the next layer on, and I'm going to give that a dry with the hairdryer. Next, I want to start to put a bit of detail into the trees. So you just need to slow down a wee bit here with this and just not be quite so gung-ho with it. If you do make a mistake and you think something is too dark, you can just dab it with your tissue. One clean dab should be enough to take it off, dry it, and then go back in again. Because at this stage it's quite unnerving in that when I'm looking at that thinking that may be too dark, what I have there, but just take a risk and see what happens. Keeping in mind that this bit at the front of the house is a darker area. I love that blue, bluey green. So this isn't a traditional landscape with colours like that, and I didn't plan to do those colours, it's just that's where it's taken me. For me, I need to be careful not to overwork at this stage. I can make a dog's dinner out of this right and quickly, just the way I paint. So, put a wee bit of shadow into the field. haven't used indigo yet, which is one of my favourite colours. Just drop it in on the tip of a brush. That's gonna give you your shadow on the trees. Like I said earlier, as long as your page is still damp, it's okay to do that. I'm going to dry that first and then decide what else I need to do. As I was drying this, a run flew across the page, which was because I was going too quick. So I tried to disguise that slightly. It's still there, so we'll see what that's like later. Okay, now we're starting to go into the detail a little bit. So I'm going to pick a blue, and I'm going to start on the roof of the house. Now I've gone for the lighter blue here because I want it to partly shine through. I'm going to cover it over later on with an indigo. Also marries the colour that we have at the front. It's good to use the other colours right through the picture. And it marries it off and makes it complement each other. In the original photograph, it's hard to see. It's not a good quality photo, and it's too windy today to go and take another one. But that actually looked like a round roofed barn. But I like the idea of the second dwelling behind it. I don't know what colour the front door is, and you can't see it, but I'm a sucker for a bit of red. And this is quite a colourful wee piece. And I think everybody needs a bit of a cheer up at the minute, so I'll go with a red front door. This is the fun bit. When I was taught by Paul Holmes, I was always told to keep the detail to the end. We're still nowhere near the end, but it's good to have a bit of fun. So the paper I'm using today is Arches. It's 100% cotton rag paper. I've always used it. There's lots of other various types you can use, but that's just my preferred type. With regards to brushes, I have bought expensive brushes and not really seen much of a difference with regards to buying cheaper ones. So I have a bit of a mixture, and I love to try different ones out, especially the cheap ones if you get something that actually works. So there's a schoolboy error that I've just done there now. As you can see the way it's bled through, that's because I didn't wait for it to dry, which is just typical of me. But there we are, that's the next stage. Done. We need to do something with these rocks, so I might introduce a different colour. Raw sienna is quite a nice colour. It's nice when it's mixed with ultramarine violet as well. detail in these rocks. I just want them strengthened up slightly. Try and keep the notion of shadow in your head as well with regards to where the shadow's falling. The light's coming over the hill, the gable end of these houses is going to be darker. I'm using a couple of different coloured blues here, just to give a wee bit of softness. I don't want it to be a harsh picture. I want it to be a soft day where the donkeys live. We can actually hear the donkeys bray from here, even though we're about half a mile away over the fields. And we always know when the owner of this place arrives home at night because we can hear the donkeys shouting on her. I'm going to give that a quick dry before I put a shadow under the eaves of the house. The light is hitting the roof of that house as well. Lost the chinley a little bit. I think I'll go in with a brick colour for that. Okay, you know, I get into the stage where I'm thinking to myself, when do I stop? That's a big mistake a lot of people make, and me included. overworking something, especially if it's a simple wee piece. You don't want to. Sometimes if you're going over it and you're strengthening things up, go over the same marks that you've already made. I know I said earlier about leaving the sky, but I think I now need to go back in and add a bit more body to the sky as well, and that should be it almost finished. This is kind of hold your breath time. So that's starting to look a bit more moody already. The sky was just a wee bit bland before. Not enough going on. And again, in with a little bit of soften the edges and different colour there. Comes down onto your page, you can carry it forward. It's give that a try. Lightest lights and darkest darks to the front, so I just want to try and get a wee hint of this coming across. And there's no shadows in the yard, and there needs to be something there as well, which is lacking at the minute, so we just need to do a wee bit more detail. Okay, a good amount, Let's see what it looks like. I think we've got two pictures here, not one. So I just want to add a little bit of orange onto the chimneys. Find a nice bright one. Just a hint. And I would like to do a little bit of splatter work here too. See this, just for a suggestion of a few buttercups at the front. And that is just putting your brush into some paint and having a bit of a flick. Do a bit of darker as well, and a little bit of red. Just at the very front. Okay. I'm going to dry that and then we'll put a mount around it. So as you can see from the images that I've just put up with the mounts around them, there's three different options. You can use the one with the two houses in, you can use the one with just the one, which I like because the light's nice in it. But I also like the brush strokes in that one. So for me, it's two for the price of one. I definitely would not do that one. I think the two buildings are fighting with each other. So I hope you've enjoyed my style of painting. It's a bit haphazard and happy accident from start to finish really, but I hope you've enjoyed it and it inspires you to lift up a brush and have a go. It's all about having a bit of fun, and if it doesn't work out, put it in the bin. If it does, put it on the wall. Thank you.